for teens and adults at the intermediate level. The topic is how pyramids survive earthquakes. The way my lessons are designed is that there are three parts to it. So the first part, you're going to teach some key vocabulary to your students before part two, which is the reading of a short article. So the article is broken down to a few pages, and each page has like at most 3 to 4 lines, or sorry, 3 to 4 sentences. So that way it's easier on the eye, especially for online teaching. And then after part two comes the last part, part three, which is the discussion activity. This is where I provide a set of like 7 to 8 questions, so that the teacher, you, can follow these questions and start an interesting or engaging conversation with your students. And of course, if you have your own questions that you can come up with, then by all means throw them in. Okay, so let's take a look at for part one here. To teach the key vocabulary. I usually have like 6 or 7 vocabulary in each lesson. So for this one example, the word earthquake, what does that mean? And all my lessons come with beautiful graphics, right? Because a picture tells 1,000 words. So here's a picture of like, earthquake, right? And here is also a sample sentence. So you don't need to get the student to read the definition of earthquake. You can just explain it and show, describe the picture to them. And the sentence, you can get them to read it. This way so this helps them to understand how to apply this word in a normal English sentence. Another vocabulary, for example, or a term, natural erosion. So if you look at this picture here, so these rocks, right? Part of it has fallen off, and so there's natural erosion here. And here is another sentence for that. Okay, and then next one, I have a term called vibration. What does that mean, right? So here's an example of the phone, like you can put your phone on vibration mode, if you're busy or if you're in a meeting. Yeah, so I have more vocabulary in the actual lesson, but these three are just general examples. And then after part one comes part two, which is to get the student to read a short article. So this topic is on how the pyramids, the Egyptian pyramids, how they have survived earthquakes. So the beginning here, right? Get the student to read, and then listen to their intonation, their reading, their pronunciation, and etc. And if there are words that they have trouble pronouncing, of course, help them. And so the article basically says that the pyramids have been around for over like 4,000 years, and Giza, Egypt, has had many earthquakes, right? But surprisingly, the pyramids have not suffered any serious damage. So that's why the scientists are trying to understand what is the reason behind the pyramids being so sturdy. And then so therefore they have reasons to believe that the way they're built to to be highly resistant to earthquakes. And then there's some like supporting facts, like for example, so I have like these points of vibration. So apparently there are like these tiny vibrations, right, at different places of the pyramid. And also, I look at the term frequency. So what does that mean, right? Frequency, it means like how fast something shakes or moves back and forth. So apparently the pyramid, it has a frequency, it naturally has a frequency at about like, 2.3 hertz, but the ground itself also shakes naturally at a different rate of frequency, which is at 0.6 hertz. So, to put it in a nutshell, basically the pyramid, the way it shakes, its frequency versus the ground's frequency is not the same. And because of that, it actually makes the pyramids more sturdy and more resistant to earthquakes. Another reason is because the way the pyramids are built, they're symmetrical, right? Look at the shape, like so I put a line here right in the middle. So they're symmetrical shape. So it's got a wide base, and so the pyramids are well balanced. And also inside the pyramids, there are these internal chambers, and the internal chambers actually help to absorb some of the earthquake's vibration. So this all sounds a little bit like advanced, and but really it's not, because when you actually read get the student to read the lesson, it's actually pretty straightforward. It's not that hard at all. And actually, it's very interesting, and some of my students are amazed by some of the findings here. So after reading the article comes part three, which is the discussion activity. So I have like 8 to 9 questions prepared for you. So because my lessons are designed to save you, the teacher, the time from having to come up with your own questions. So just follow these question prompts, and then just share your views and experiences with your students, right? Example here, one of the question, right? Have you ever experienced like an earthquake or any other types of natural disasters? This is a great icebreaker. Natural disasters can include like floods, tornadoes, monsoons, earthquakes, of course, and you can talk about it, right? Share your experiences. Another one, for example, what is the most important thing to protect during a disaster? Another great conversation, right? Like, students can mention like, oh, the most important thing is their money, their passport, their phones, their wallet, etc. Right? And another one, for example, like, what would you put in an emergency kit, right? Flashlight, water, food, canned food, etc. So many things that you can talk about. And also while you're talking, listen to their grammar and also their pronunciation, as mentioned before, and also their intonation. A lot of the ESL students, when they say a question, right, they use a monotone voice, right? But in English, really, like when you ask a question, you need to kind of you got to raise your tone, right, at the end of the sentence. And also pay attention to their grammar. They tend to confuse present tense versus past tense. Okay, and it's very common. For example, some people, some student might say, "Oh, yesterday I go to the supermarket," but really, yesterday that's in the past, right? So really, you should say, "I went to the supermarket." Okay, or they can also confuse present tense versus future tense. For example, they say something like, every day I will go to school, right? But if it's something like a habit or a routine, you just say every day I go to school, right? You don't need to say will go to school. But I try not to overcorrect them. I tend to let them speak and finish what they have to say, or I don't interrupt until they finish like 5 or 6 sentences. So this way, like I'm not like hounding them, and I let them to give them the chance to talk as much as they can. And then after they finish what they have to say, then I just gently remind them, right? For example, with verb conjugates, if the person says something like "my friend do," right? Something, then I would say my friend. That's a third person. So my friend do or my friend does, right? So give them the choice to pick. And when you ask the question like this, it actually reminds them, right? And you let them, do the picking. Okay. So yeah, so if you come and take a look at my store, I have many, many conversation lessons, and I have conversation lessons for kids, for teens and adults. And I sell them individually, and also they come in packages. Okay. All right then. Bye.